Hello and welcome to Connected. I'm James Chater, sitting in for Divya Gopalan. In recent years, drag performers have gone from strutting their stuff at fringe venues to selling out theatres worldwide, and that includes here in Taiwan. That's partly due to the success of that brought drag into people's homes. But long before they graced our screens, this art of gender expression was a driving force for equality. Now in the United States, though, a wave of anti-drag legislation is sweeping the country, with right-wing politicians trying to limit where they can perform. To discuss all this, we're joined by legendary Taipei-based drag queen Taipei Popcorn, and in LA, the equally legendary Taiwanese-American drag king, Dr. Wang Newton. Popcorn, I want to start with you. You've been featured in many of Taiwan's major fashion magazines, including Vogue and Marie Claire. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Hi, James. Thank you for having me. And, well, I'm from Aotearoa, aka New Zealand, but I've been living in Taiwan for the last 5 or 6 years. And I do a lot of drag here in Taiwan. I have lots of different projects like fashion things and magazine things and music videos and theater and art films and, of course, nightclub and bar work too. So, yeah, I really love living here and doing drag. And that's me.
And Wang, fewer people might have heard of drag kings. Explain a little bit about the difference between a drag queen and a drag king to someone who's not familiar with the culture, and a bit about your own career as well.
James, baby, long time no Wang. So good to see you. A drag king is just as number one as a drag queen. You know all about drag queens, but drag kings, I mean, look at this. Look at this, 帅哥. What is masculine performance? Well, it has been with us for such a long time, especially in Chinese opera culture. But I feel that masculinity is just as theatrical as drag queens. My career started back in 2004. It was Halloween. And I'm living in Philadelphia, New York. I'm in the US. And I decided to go out. I didn't expect to do this, but I started, and everyone, even though they were wearing costumes, they were asking me to come back to parties, to show up again and again and again. So that's a bit about how I started, which is just wanting to be an actor, but then suddenly everyone's asking me to dress like this. So I'm a little bit more polished now.
Popcorn, I wanted to ask you, drag performers have obviously long been at the forefront of advancing LGBTQ equality in countries around the world. Could you talk a little bit about the role that they've played, and particularly the role that they've played here in Taiwan as well?
Yeah, well, I think in terms of LGBT activism, drag queens are just one part of that. I think a lot of it is done by trans people, and especially the lesbians as well. I noticed they're a huge part of the really people at the front doing all the work and the activist work. But for me, I think drag queens are kind of a figurehead in some ways. Like, we are a way to unite the LGBT community around us, and we're kind of like a symbol. And we have a large social media following, of course, a lot of them, so they can use it as a platform to bring awareness to certain politics or certain issues.
More and more young people are looking to drag as a means of self-expression, and Taiwan is no different. We followed local drag queen Boba T as she prepared for her first ever performance at an iconic Taipei venue. Have a look.
So make some noise for the super talented Boba T!
My name is Boba T. I started performing 6 months ago in Taipei, Taiwan, and today will be my first time performing at Cafe Delita Taipei, which is the place where kind of bridges the Taiwan drag scene with the international drag scene. It's definitely a place that people can count on to go for, to get together as a queer community, to watch entertaining shows and to have fun together. The persona of Boba is kind of, I want it to be like fun, irreverent, and so I also wanted to kind of keep my roots of being a Taiwanese as well. So I just named myself Boba T. I'm in the ballroom community of Taiwan. Ballroom is basically like it's a competition, it's a beauty pageant, it's a fashion show, it's a place where people come together to express themselves. That is something that like I think the ballroom community really like taught Boba to do, where like do what you do to the best of your abilities and people will celebrate it. I'm feeling every emotion possible at this moment. I'm trying to like not think about it because my nerves sometimes get the best of me.
The super talented Boba T!
Boba is an extension of who I am, and it's always just been in there. I'm glad that people are seeing Boba and are willing to give Boba a chance.
And you can watch the full version of Boba's story on the TaiwanPlus website and YouTube. Popcorn, I want to come to you first of all after that little piece. I mean, how widely accepted is drag in Taiwan? And do you or other performers face any type of discrimination when you're doing the performances that we just saw Boba doing there?
Yeah, I think it's becoming more widely accepted. In the few years I've done it even, it's become much more popular and more widespread. I think I get more pass as a foreigner, of course, because I'm already an outsider, so I can kind of do more. And I'm not restrained by society as much here. But for local performers, I know some of them face discrimination from their parents even, or I know some who can't even get ready at home because their parents don't know they do drag. So there's definitely still challenges. And another thing is the taxi drivers picking drag queens up. It's happened to me. It's happened to a lot of the Tony's drag queens I know, where they will just see you and they have the empty cab symbol on, and then they stop and then they see you and they keep driving. So that's happened many times. So, but apart from that, I haven't faced too much. Most of it's very welcoming, very joyous, very appreciative, and sometimes a bit nervous. Some people don't really know what to think, but I've never really felt unsafe or in danger here, which is unlike other places in the world for sure.
And Wang, maybe I can ask you just for your reaction to that package that we just saw with Boba. I mean, as a Taiwanese American, how does it feel to see that type of development taking place in Taiwan, where young performers can come up through the ranks and start performing in these venues with a relative degree of freedom?
Would you believe that so much joy fills my heart when I see that? I've been visiting Taiwan. I came to the United States when I was 5 years old. So every time I go visit Taiwan, it keeps changing and it keeps growing. And so for a long time, I didn't see people like me who would dress up and go out. But because I'm wearing a red suit, I'm bright and bold. And when I see that, I just love how Taiwan has grown. So I'm very proud.
And you mentioned at the beginning of the show about some of drag's kind of historical context, and modern drag has precedent in Asian cultures with some Chinese opera, with male actors playing female roles. Could you talk a little bit more about the historical context to this art form as well?
The Tang Dynasty from about 600 to 900 AD is really the start of theatrical performance that has old men, young man, warrior, to have assigned female at birth playing male roles. I don't think they thought it was a big deal. Drag is a current expression of that. We are interested in theatrics, in comedy, in playing with the audience. That's performance art. To go out into the world, go out into the street. I've traveled the world bringing Wang and then suddenly changing. Yes, admittedly, we take a little shorter time than some drag queens to get into all of this glory. But I get to travel the world and do Wang and interact with people and bring laughter and joy. So it has been part of our culture, Chinese culture. It has continued on. And this is same as Shakespeare. And it really has been throughout time, different cabaret, maybe more singing, right? It's still opera, it's still singing. There's just different songs, different dances, different jokes.
And Popcorn, in that piece with Boba Tea, we saw Cafe de Leader, which is a very famous drag bar here in Taipei. How important are those types of venues and those types of settings for queer communities?
I mean, even just seeing that footage, like, it makes me get goosebumps, and same as Wang, like, it warms my heart. That place is so warm, and I associate with some of my best memories in my life are in that place. So many nights I've spent there just talking around tables and performing and seeing the most queer joy. It's just such a place of joy and community and warmth and welcoming people.
And despite their importance, oh, sorry, Wang, were you going to add something there?
I was just saying yes.
Yeah.
A little shout. Oh.
Yeah, I love Dalida. Shout out to Dalida.
Despite the importance of these spaces to queer communities, in the US, a backlash against drag performers is taking hold. In recent months, at least 14 US states have introduced anti-drag legislation. Most of them aim to ban drag performances in public spaces where children could see them. In March, Tennessee became the first US state to pass such a law, banning shows in public spaces that include, quote, male or female impersonators. At the time of recording, a federal judge has temporarily halted the law's implementation. At the first offense, violators could be fined $2,500 or face a year in jail. Repeat offenders could face 6 years in jail. Wang, you're working in the US. What impact is this wave of legislation having on your community, and how are people responding to it?
It really does have an impact. Perhaps psychologically, perhaps in many ways that we don't know. I did hire a bodyguard when I took the big stage recently. Even if it's for show, because it can be part of my character to have a bodyguard, but why do we even want this thought in our minds? Why does that have to invade our joy? Because the other side of the fear that's out there is that we have joy. That's all that we're really doing, is sharing that and making other people laugh and entertain people. So the impact is that there is extra concern, the impact that we might face when we're kind of hiding ourselves sometimes, or we're being extra bold and loud as in rebellion. So everyone's concerned about it, but we've always been resilient.
And could you talk a little bit about how that resilience is manifesting? How are people responding to this? How are they banding together?
Sure, there's a lot of protests. There's definitely people. We've been very active since last year's of all the different political things happening and the horrible leadership. So people are used to calling the government, calling their representatives, taking to the streets, as well as organizing fundraisers to illegal nonprofits and for-profits that are helping us, with the laws and to counter the laws. So we are certainly doing our best, but we always, could use more support.
And Popcorn, do you think there's a concern that Taiwan could go in a similar direction that the US is going in terms of limiting or kind of legislating against drag performers?
I would like to say no, because I think the US is really in a different place. But then seeing what happened in Taiwan with the same-sex marriage movement, at the time there was a lot of fear around that, maybe 2 or 3 years ago before it passed. And a lot of right-wing groups and Christian groups, which is quite a small section of the population here, they created a huge fear campaign, which ended up being rather successful. And there was a referendum held in which 67% of the population voted against same-sex marriage, or 67% of the voters, I should say. It was only about a third of the population. And so when seeing that happening, it's possible that that could happen again in the future in terms of other, towards drag or towards transgender people or towards other sections of the LGBT community.
I think that actually is it. It's really fear,
Yeah.
There are many bigger issues. I only mentioned the gun portion. But the fear, what is really underneath everything, is the unknown. People are used to a particular way of life that they live, and they're just going to keep going on. But when you look at something so colorful, so different, you want to not look at yourself. You want to point the finger, and that's what they say, right? The finger pointing outwards and looking out at someone else doing something else, but you never want to look at the 3 fingers pointing back at yourself.
Popcorn, how does it feel to see your art form and your colleagues in the US being legislated against in this way?
I mean, it's just outrageous. It makes me very angry and sad. It's just ridiculous to think that you can regulate how people dress, how people behave. It's very authoritarian and dangerous, I think. Yeah, I think it's absolutely unacceptable.
To get another perspective on this, we reached out to a star of reality TV show RuPaul's Drag Race, the Chicago-based Kimora Hall. Here's what she had to say.
Hi, I'm Kimora Hall, and I'm a drag artist from the United States. I think it's absolutely ridiculous that drag queens and trans people are being targeted, we're being scapegoated and blamed to distract from the larger issue, which is gun violence. You know, mass shootings are the leading cause of death in children in America. Not you or me, not that drag show down the street, not that trans person, literally just existing. And, you know, I am very fortunate to be in Chicago where there aren't such bills and legislations, but we have to be there for our trans and drag community in Tennessee and beyond. Like, we're all in this together. Ban guns, not drag shows. Ban guns, not trans healthcare. Thanks for having me. Mwah.
Wang, Kimora there talked about the law's impact on other queer people. Explain to viewers why this type of legislation doesn't just impact drag performers, but a wide array of the queer community.
I started on Halloween, and I know that that's an American culture thing, but how much has Halloween spread? And just take your mind into the moment of October 31st. Like, so many people are dressing up in drag. And when you take away that one day of the year, what about cosplay? What about, right, theater? So what happens when you're dressed in theater, you're in a play, and then you don't have time to take off your makeup, but you happen to be playing the opposite gender and you walk into the streets to go home? I mean, isn't it horrible to even do cosplay and to say, oh, I'm not in drag, but someone thinks you're in drag just because you're in makeup and colorful and have bright clothing and funky clothing. So it actually is an impact that's beyond the queer community.
Popcorn, I mean, would you feel nervous if you were going to the US now and performing there? Is that something you would think about in a different way now?
I mean, of course, it depends on the state I'm going to, but I mean, yeah, just to maybe anywhere in the country, I would feel more apprehensive about going there knowing how the climate is now. I think it's very tarnishing the United States' reputation and internationally.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that you've spoken about before. You said before that Taiwan's relative freedom and its drag scene is a form of soft power for Taiwan in comparison to the restrictions that we're seeing now in the US. Could you explain a little bit more about what you mean by drag in Taiwan being a form of soft power?
I think it's a visible symbol of personal freedom and freedom of expression here, that everyone can see that this kind of performance or this kind of art is not just tolerated but celebrated here. And especially, obviously, it's always compared with China, where that's very literally also legislated against. Like, they're not allowed to be on TV or I mean, the clubs there are raided and people are subjected to drug tests and things like that just to suppress queer life there. So in contrast to that, Taiwan stands as a place that's very open, and it's kind of a magnet for the queer community, especially in Asia. You see Taiwan Pride, or even just any weekend in Taipei, there will be people coming from Hong Kong, from Singapore, from Tokyo, from Kuala Lumpur, just coming here because they know it's a place where they can go out, meet people, have fun, watch drag, and yeah, it's got a huge draw for people, that the freedom, the personal freedom here.
And Wang, I wanted to ask you a question about something that you've spoken about before, which is this idea of Taiwan's drag scene being excellent and that Taiwan's drag performers have excellence. Can you talk a little bit more about what you mean by that?
When I get to watch the drag that's coming out of Taiwan, it just like fills me with joy and awe just to see the different kings that are coming together, teaching each other makeup, the queens as well, all different ages in the younger group. So it actually is not just mediocre, it is excellence. And you see that, you know what I'm talking about when you see excellence. It just pulls you right in.
Very agree.
And your
Wang.
drag.
Wang, you spoke there about new drag performers coming up through the ranks. Well, in the spirit of openness and trying out new things, we might have another one for you. Popcorn, we got you to put one of our producers, Tomash, in drag for the very first time. So just so you know, Tomash usually prefers a hoodie and trainers when he's in the office. So here's his transformation.
Hi, I'm Tomasz. I'm a producer for Connected, and today, for the first time in my life, I'm getting put in drag.
Which I'm very excited about.
Yeah, I'm excited as well. I've never even worn makeup in my life.
Me neither. All right, Tomasz, are you ready?
Let's go.
Get started.
Let's do this. So how long does it take you to get into full drag makeup?
It depends on the complexity of the look, but usually 2 to 3 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and then I have to put all the clothes on as well. So it's quite an operation. Did you have any qualms or worries or concerns about doing drag before when you found out you were doing this project?
Not really, no. I mean, if you asked me 20 years ago, since I come from a pretty conservative country, I would think like, well, maybe, people back home are gonna see this. What are they gonna say? I wanted to do this because I think it was a great idea. So, how do you feel when you put on makeup, when you put on drag? Like, what changes inside you?
Yeah, it's quite a meditative process. So just looking into your own eyes for 2 hours, 3 hours in front of a mirror. Usually I do it very quietly, sometimes without music. And then you become this character, and that's kind of the final pop. And then usually my personality will change at that point, and I become a bit more irritating. And once you see yourself, your movements will change. Like, it's quite interesting actually how much the movement comes into it.
Wow! This is amazing! Oh wow, this is like a different person. It is. Yeah.
It's still a start.
Wow, and the beard works. Thank you. You're amazing. You've done miracles. I now understand what you mean when people see the effect, and it's like, it's me. I'm moving my mouth when I speak in my head, but I don't recognize myself. So it is,
It's an illusion, isn't it?
A different presence, a different feel.
Yeah, it's quite powerful.
Yes, it is. Very powerful. This is great. Thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you, Tomasz. So happy.
You can watch the full version of Tomash's story on the TaiwanPlus website and YouTube. Popcorn, what was it like putting Tomash in drag for the first time, and do you think she might be stealing some of your gigs soon?
I'm watching my back. She's going to be big. I can tell. Stella Star Stuff. That was the name. It was just, again, it comes back to joy. It was so fun just to have this big, straight Polish man and to share this experience together and to play with makeup and colors and big silly clothes and just laugh and then see how he changed his behavior afterwards. And we just kind of developed these almost science fiction characters, and we were prowling around the office, and it's not serious. That's the thing. People are so threatened by this, but it's all about letting go of yourself and enjoying it. And it was overwhelmingly joyful.
Wang, how does it feel to watch that transformation unfold?
Hot stuff! Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Popcorn! That was #1, baby. Wow, that was a transformation. Completely different. Excellence, baby, excellence.
Thank you.
I love seeing that. I don't think he would ever come close to what you just did for him. I really wish people could do that more. And it doesn't have to be that elaborate if you just try, just one little bit. But if you get to invite a professional makeup artist to do it, find a wig, even better. But also, drag king, what's it like to step into the body, the beingness of a man? It's just something to try. It's something really empowering.
And Popcorn, as a final question, you've mentioned before to me that you think everyone should do and try drag at least once in their life. Why do you think that?
Yeah, I just think it's a fundamental experience to step out of yourself and try to be someone else for a day, or just to walk in someone else's shoes. It's corny, but it's true. You should. It just frees you up. You really don't realize how much of your personality and identity is in your clothes and in the way you present yourself every day. And when you have a totally different personality and totally different clothes and makeup and hair and everything, it really surprises you how much you change and how much it's almost like letting go of all that baggage, and it's very freeing. So I think everyone should try. It helps people empathize with others, and it helps you connect with who you are, and it's a very interesting experience.
Wang, is that something you'd endorse as well?
Absolutely. Please do not let Halloween be the only day to allow yourself, to give yourself permission to dress up. You could do it anytime. You could have fun anytime.
Thank you both so much for your time today and speaking about this issue at a really important time. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this episode of Connected. Thank you to my two guests, Dr. Wang Newton in LA and Taipei Popcorn. And thank you to our viewers for joining us again. It was great to have your company. Goodbye and stay connected.